You're listening to the Thoughts for Living podcast, coming to you from the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement, Montgomery, Alabama. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Thoughts for Living podcast. You know, in the first section, we were talking about dog whistles, name calling, and the Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson hearings. And we were discussing how Republican operatives, these supremacists, were using that opportunity to examine Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to use dog whistles in order to continue to alert their followers and supporters who believe that wrongly critical race theory is taught in public schools, and who also wrongly believe that there is some kind of organized sex ring being run by the elites in Washington, D.C., and evidently those elites are only Democrats, who are assaulting children. And also we find, after evidence comes out of text messages between Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas' wife, Jenny Thomas, and the Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, of the former Trump administration, that they believed a QAnon theory that Trump administration had watermarked millions of ballots so that they could catch the Democrats in stealing votes. Now, these insane ideas are being held not only by some rank and file supremacists, but also by those at high echelons, including a Supreme Court Justice's wife and other members of the Trump administration and members of the Trump administration. This is madness. And seemingly, we're allowing this madness to be normalized to the degree that there's very little real conversations in the media about the state of our society, when you would have millions of people believing a lie. But I guess if you use ecological consciousness theory, many friends I've talked to, I guess they would say this is simply par for the course. That many in this nation have continued to believe untruths and falsehoods about Black people, Native American people, and Asians who come to this country. These false beliefs have been perpetuated since the founding of the country, of the republic. And so I guess for many, it's no surprise that millions and millions of European Americans would believe lies because that has been the case since they arrived here as a settler colony and then took advantage of the native people who were already living here that they believed were not human, or at least they were not as good as Europeans. I think Wilderson would argue that they at least recognized native people's humanity in later years because they would at least negotiate with them, right? Even though they never kept one treaty made with native peoples, and the majority of their land has been confiscated, and then they have themselves been regulated to small parcels called reservations. It was lies and falsehoods that led to the kidnapping of Africans from the continent, then being brought and sold in all over the world, including South America, the Caribbean islands, and the United States. It was lies that undermined, that undergirded slavery. It was lies that undergirded not only our ancestors' enslavement, but also the peonage system that they established after the Civil War, in which African Americans were segregated from all aspects of political, social, and economic life in the country, where we were arrested and put into prisons in order to be leased to corporations to help build further this nation. These behaviors were built on lies. So it was lies that led to the internment of Asian Americans during World War II. Asian Americans that had been in this country all of their lives, had their property confiscated, and they were made to stay in internment camps. So many would say that the nation was founded on lies, and masses of the citizenry have continued to reproduce lies. And so it's no surprise that today, lies like critical race theory being taught in pre-K through 12th grade schools would be accepted by numbers of European Americans in this country. Lies that there's a elite trafficking by elites of children in the United States who are trying to take over the country. So it would not really come as a surprise that people would believe after Trump suggested that if he lost the election, he could only lose if it was stolen. Now, what kind of foolishness is that to say? The only way he could lose was if the election was stolen. And he starts that foolishness and then uses operatives at the local and state levels, along with people like Judge Thomas's wife and others who tried to promote that he be kept in office through lies, which is what the current January 6th committee is showing us that these people who wanted to call an insurrection that took place at the nation's capital, some Republicans saying that it just looked like a normal day of visitors to the Capitol, when in reality we witnessed the machinations of a coup d'etat. At the highest level, we had people trying to overthrow a fair and free election. All of even Trump's attorney general said there was no evidence of mass fraud. And to date, there has been no evidence of mass fraud, but still people believe that the election was stolen. Lies. Believing lies. Believing that only whites deserve to be in control. And now believing whites are being victimized. You live in a white settler informed colony that became a republic where you control the political, social, and economic apparatus of the nation, and yet you feel victimized. Well, I'm not going to say that poor whites aren't victimized, but you're not being victimized by black and brown people and Asian people. You are being victimized by a power structure that wants to maintain itself. And you know, one part of telling lies is that, you know, you have to continue to tell the lie in order for it to maintain itself. And seemingly, we have many in this country who want to believe that the founding people of the Republic were simply honest and upright men who were given the opportunity to establish freedom and justice for all, and is the greatest and formalized the greatest nation on the earth. But my friends, that is a myth. That is a falsehood. This republic was established through the genocide of Native American peoples and through the enslavement of African peoples, and on the backs of non-white people, this country has become great because it never paid any type of real wages for the 256 years that African people were enslaved here. You know, if you run a business and you don't have to pay your employees, you'll make a lot of money. So we see where lies about people's humanity. And those lies have been reinforced so that still today, the descendants of enslaved Africans who live here in this country are not considered human beings. I would add, in light of the issue 2, the uproar over Will Smith's decision to do what he felt was necessary to stop Chris Rock from dishonoring the wife of his children, I wonder, had Judge Ketanji Brown's Jackson husband gone up and slapped the taste out of Ted Cruz's mouth, would anybody be talking about how Mr. Jackson hit Mr. Cruz rather than talking about the racist and disparaging statements he had made to his wife? And certainly I feel he could have hit Cruz because, Trump even said something negative about Cruz's wife. Trump made some false allegations about Cruz's father. And what does he do today? He kisses Trump's behind. If Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's husband had have left his seat and walked up and slapped the taste out of Lindsey Graham's mouth, I wonder would we have the same response that we have today against Will Smith, who could have laughed it off, but after seeing his wife's face, and I've seen that look from my wife, the next question, the next thing is, what's going to be your response? And it's the lies that have been used over time that are being used against Will Smith now. Because as James Baldwin said, the Irish, the Poles, the Jews, European Americans can all stand and say, give me liberty and give me death, and the entire white world stands and applauds. But if a black man says the same thing, he is looked on as some kind of menace. Okay? And I think it's very disingenuous for today, in this context, when U.S. propaganda has been used where most people are calling for the deaths of Russians, where this country went and killed all kinds of people in Syria, all kinds of people in Libya and Afghanistan, and are still holding the money that belongs to the Afghan people. And Biden says he's going to give it to the 9/11 people when nobody from Afghanistan participated directly. But now we know people came from Saudi Arabia, but he's not talking about sanctioning Saudi Arabia. And so all of this violence from slavery, violence from killing men, women, and children that were native to this country, and then taking those children and putting them in schools so that they could try to de-Indian them, to try to make them white. All of this violence that has gone on in this nation over the centuries, and still today, African-American men, women, and children are being shot in the streets by so-called law enforcers and citizens, and even being shot. You had this young European-American shooting people in Minnesota. And now we are gassed that Will Smith would defend his wife, that he would slap the taste out of Chris Rock's mouth, while in the next breath, We're cheering for the killing of Russians, and we are just aghast that Will would do such a thing. You know what? And we're gonna do this on the next episode. Will flip the script. Because this is what we really are. This is the most violent nation on the planet Earth. Yet we try to pretend we are surprised by anybody who would use what they felt was necessary to defend their women and children. Well, the first movie made in the United States, what was it? The Birth of a Nation? And it was pretty much what? The Ku Klux Klan coming to the aid of what? The white woman. The white man has always been able to defend his woman or his property in any way that he felt was necessary. And I agree with that. So if it's right for a white man to defend his wife, if it's right for a white man to defend his property in how he deems necessary, then it's right for Will Smith to defend his wife. It's right for Will Smith to defend the mother of his children and his property in the way that he feels is necessary. All of this shows that we need to stop drinking the Kool-Aid. We need to pull this tooth that we have that's poisoning the body politic, the body economic, the social fabric of this nation. Because these lies are what's causing the harm, the real harm, because it's the lies that precede the behaviors. If we want to see a better, more sustainable world, my friends, we have to deal with the truth. There will be no sustainable environment for humanity lest we deal with the truth. Recognize who we really are. As Michael Jackson said, start with the woman and the man in the mirror. We need to look at ourselves and what we've actually been doing. Not what we've been saying, that we are great, but what we've been doing. How laws and policies have hindered the development of citizens of this nation. How laws and policies have inhibited the development of our young people. We shackle them with student debt rather than allowing for free public education and seeing an investment in our young people. Lies rather than the truth. Recognizing we need a public health care system to which all people can be served, rather than a for-profit, privatized system which in a pandemic could not effectively provide what was necessary for the masses of people in this country. We need a lens, a framework, ways of seeing the world that will allow us to get beyond these lies. I'll say this as we end this episode. It was a writer named Kelsey, and he equated racism, white supremacy, with religious belief. And he said basically that religious belief cannot be validated. You can't prove the existence of the Creator. And he says that with racism, you see the same behavior. People holding on to belief systems, right, that they feel can't be proven. But the reality is that we can show that critical race theory isn't taught in schools. We can show that there's no cabal that's involved in child pornography that's trying to take over the United States. We can show definitively that the election wasn't stolen, or that the Trump administration didn't put watermarks on ballots so that they could find out if the Democrats were stealing the election. But if you hold on to these beliefs in the face of objective evidence to the contrary, then you're acting as you're involved in a religion. And if that is the case, then I would suggest that what we're dealing with here is idolatry. We're dealing with the worship of whiteness, accepting falsehoods in any falsehood to justify white supremacy. That you just can't see a world where the European is not in control. That's a sad consciousness. And it's not sustainable. You've been listening to the Thoughts for Living podcast.